I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today and listening in on this journey of a member contact center. You'll be hearing more about it here shortly, but it's Apple Federal Credit Union, and we have Mark Whitney and Peter Yancek today talking a little bit about this story. But it really centers around, you know, the reasons customers contact your center. And we're all a part of this digital journey. Everyone's been going through it to some degree. There's been a lot of conversation with members over the last 18 months. Hey, for fun, let's throw in a pandemic and then get the virtual component and digital transformation. There's a lot to unpack here, but Mark has graciously agreed to sit down and tell a little bit about his story of their contact center operation. Let me introduce our two speakers today. Peter Yancek, he's the co-founder and CEO, as you can see, of Operative Intelligence. And Mark Whitney has been around the contact center there for Apple Federal Credit Union for, better part of 10 plus years. So today we're going to kind of focus our discussion around their journey of trying to understand the root cause of why members are contacting them, trying to understand how to improve the member experience. And as I mentioned, then go through a pandemic and the whole shift to virtual. Things have evolved. So Mark's going to share a little bit about his story today. And perhaps, Mark, as people read through this, maybe a good place to start is for you to just kind of tell our listeners a little bit about the contact center. They're all contact center folks, so they get that. We know you're a smaller contact center, but just for context, can you share a little bit about your operation?
Again, Apple Federal Credit Union. And, I run a department, it's called the Member Solutions Center. And within that is the contact center. We have a total of 61 employees. We manage a deposits department. We manage video tellers, an e-services department that handles all of our chats, emails, and everything online and mobile banking, as well as the contact center, which has 36 agents, 4 working supervisors, 2 assistant managers, and a manager. That's a little bit about us, but I would share with you, we average probably around 38,000 calls monthly, incoming phone calls. So it's about 17 to 2,000 incoming calls per day. So that gives you a little background on where we're at and the kind of volume that we do. We do handle about 3,500 chats a month and about 7,500 emails. So quite a bit of little work for the area.
Now, in the course of the last few years, has there been a slow shift to those digital channels? It seems like maybe you're running, my math's not the best, but maybe 20% digital versus phone.
So yeah, there's definitely been a shift. I think it's been more pronounced, especially over the last couple of years. Of course, the pandemic forced a lot of that to happen, as in our case, in many other cases, some of our branches were closed down for a short period of time. We had to direct members to different channels. And the good side of that was a lot of our members have learned how to use other channels that perhaps didn't want to previously.
That's a familiar story. We have our own story within CCNG. We had the ability to do video meetings, but there just wasn't an appetite for it. We just wait till you all get together here in Phoenix or Charlotte or Dallas or wherever we were gathering. But once we couldn't gather, we were forced into it, and now it is here to stay. Do you feel that some of those digital channels are going to continue to grow and evolve?
I definitely feel that way, and I definitely continue to see that, especially in our chat and email volume as well. We've seen that grow exponentially. Email volume has grown at least twice, 2 to 3 times what it was a couple of years ago. Chats has grown twice as much, but also our call volume has definitely increased, especially over the last couple of years. And with that comes some challenges, because one of the things that I think people can relate to is call times have extended over the last couple of years. It takes longer to get through the calls because they may need more information because of now they're using a channel that they may have not been familiar with before, or they have more questions about the online and mobile applications.
Sure, if those channels didn't exist, the support questions aren't necessary. Here's kind of a curveball for you. In speaking to a number of our at CCNG, we're pretty strong in the healthcare vertical and in financial services. So we get a lot of questions in the context of those two verticals. And I've been listening over the last couple of years. It seems like in your business, you have certain demographics that are maybe the major depositors, and they're attached to one type of channel, but then you've got the growth, which is perhaps not the major depositors, but they're like my kids in their 20s and 30s, and they tend to lean towards other types of channels. Do you have that kind of insight to your member base?
So interesting. That's definitely a challenge that we've been looking at over time. How do we get the members looking at our membership? How do we get them to come to Apple? What? And you're talking about different generations here and they do things very differently. So, and that's a process that we're still working on, trying to work through what are some of the avenues, trying and experimenting with new ways to bring them in. Because you look at places like Chime and things like that, that's where a lot of the younger folks are going, how can we compete with that?
Well, it's certainly, you're not alone in your journey, and you taking time to share a little bit about how you're approaching it certainly will help others. And I suspect others will be more than happy to share their for context. How many members do you have?
So we have over 250,000 members.
Yikes. Okay. Let's hope they don't all call the same day.
Yeah. I felt like they have before.
Well, and obviously you, like all organizations, are in the middle of this shift to digital transformation. Being mindful of not putting your customers, your members, dragging them through the mud, right? I mean, they have to be brought along. We've certainly heard the horror stories of the greatest piece of tech that no one wants to use. And we've heard the stories of the legacy system that I know we should be able to tell you that information, but I have to go through 99 screens to get it to you. And that's a horrible user experience on both ends. But you're grappling with something that you really identified maybe a year to 2 years ago in terms of better understand. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And Peter, this is when I want you to jump in and share a little bit how you help them with their journey.
So there's definitely a story behind that. What I needed, and I met Peter a couple of years ago at an event that we shared, and we had a common interest. We learned out we were in a couple of breakout sessions together, and I think we intrigued each other with some of the questions. We had similar thought processes, and in continued conversation with Peter, he asked me one of the things, what kind of a wish, what would you like? And I said, well, I've been doing this for over 35 years. And the one thing I would like is to know exactly why my members are calling me. Why are they calling me? Now, with the systems I have, I could generally tell you why they're calling me, but I couldn't specifically sit down and say, I'm getting this many calls for this. So taking action, putting resources on problems was problematic because you need to know where to put those.
Absolutely. Peter, any comments around that?
Yeah, when Mark and I had met, I was just probably at around year 15 of leading contact center transformation programs for businesses globally. And what we found was that, the single biggest challenge we would continue to run into was getting hard evidence, which would objectively outline what are all of the things that our customers are asking us to do. What's the way that they describe it? What's the root cause? And for any of those interactions, what's the volume? What's the workload? What's the cost? That is something that you would expect your existing systems to be able to give you. But what we typically use as operational leaders is call dispositioning, where a customer is calling in or a member is calling in. The agent is making an interpretation for that contact reason. And so you're really dependent upon the quality of those contact reasons that the business builds into that taxonomy and then the agent making the right selection. And so with that, we found that we could only ever get data that was directionally accurate about the big trends. But when we wanted to really dig in and understand, well, what's the universe of reasons why the contact's actually happening in the first place? If we know 11% of our calls are in regards to payments, why are they contacting in relation to payments? Is because they're going online and they're failing? What percentage is that? Did they not have a payment taken when they first signed up for their membership, and so they're needing to call because their product hasn't worked? That context was always missing. And so having kind of experienced that challenge firsthand, when we had that discussion with Mark, he said, this is something that I've been trying to solve for my entire career. And so that's what brought us together, this common interest of really getting to the heartbeat of why the contact center exists, which is understanding what are our members asking us to do, and being able to quantify that and tell a story.
Managers would come to me and say, well, we're getting a lot of calls on this. And I'd be like, well, what's a lot of calls? Well, can we quantify that? I can't go to the senior leadership. Well, we're getting a lot of calls on lending, being able to quantify that, so as I've shared with Peter, I used to tell them all, speak with data, not blah, blah, blah. I needed data.
So what happened to get you the data?
As far as, getting the root cause analysis of calls.
Exactly.
That part never seemed too difficult for me. It was all the stuff I asked for after that.
Okay.
So, yes, it was work as far as how we, got the information, how we worked with Peter and his group to get that set up. But this was, in terms of projects that I've worked on, this was pretty effortless.
Peter, what's the nuts and bolts, understanding our audience is not technical? Can you give us a little more under the hood?
Sure. I mean, just from a business perspective, and just to set the context for Apple, Mark had resources that were doing quality assessments every month. Listen to 5 calls per agent per month, scoring out of a spreadsheet and kind of using that to inform performance, what's driving calls, alignment to brand values, all of the things that we kind of know and have been trained around a good quality scorecard. The approach that we took with Apple, being a smaller contact center, was a creative one. What we did was we allowed Mark and the team to leverage those existing quality resources, but they started using a digital front end where they were starting to capture different points of data, where we were specifically focused on what is the member's verbatim reason for contact. That is the main data point that we started getting those quality assessors to capture. So I'm calling because I need to process a payment. So just that snippet as the member would explain it was really the primary input, in addition to behaviors that look very different to what they were scoring previously. Essentially, that data is captured in real time as observations are being completed, and it's fed through to our technology stack. And what that is doing is categorizing the root cause reasons for contact, all of the contact reasons in the words of the member, and then it dimensionalizes that into dashboards for Mark's leadership, and Mark's frontline and their agents, so they can have kind of an objective view of what are the members' needs, and where are the big opportunities, whether it's at an agent level, at an operational level, or at an organizational level. So there was no complex implementations. I think within 2 weeks, Mark, we had you the insights that you were looking for, and that's kind of since been driven out of Mark's team without the need for any IT integrations and involvement, which has meant they've been able to drive it exclusively out of the contact center, but use it to engage not just the contact center agents, but the broader business with the findings.
So what did you do? What changed when you had the information out, the new data?